Welcome to Hunting God's Country. I'm Cal,
And I'm Jason.
and this
Is a Remington Model 660.
the gun I took my first buck with.
Cal's first buck.
This is my first buck.
This is his first buck.
It has 8 points,
It does.
and it came from right out back, about a quarter mile back there.
And it looks almost identical to my first buck, which is how many years later? A lot of years later.
89 to 24, that's something 5.
No, you didn't shoot this one at 24.
No. I shot this deer in 2016.
16 and 11 is 27. 27 years later. Almost identical, same genetics, same widespread. Mine's just a touch wider. Short tines, 8 points, almost identical to this one. Shot with the same gun. That's right.
Gun.
I shot my first buck with this rifle right here.
And I shot my first buck with this rifle right here.
1989 I shot mine at a blind we called the Hotel. Cal shot his in 2016
The food plot blind,
at the food plot blind, which is about
which has been rebuilt.
100 yards
So,
maybe from where I shot mine.
Same genetics, I believe, because it looks identical. I believe this deer is the great-great-grandchild of the one that Dad shot.
I'm sure of it. So let's talk a little bit about the gun.
It's made by Remington. Remington Model 660. It's the predecessor to the Model 600. I don't remember why they stopped making the 600, but they decided to go with the 660. There's a couple more upgrades on the 660 over the 600, with the biggest upgrade probably being they added an extra 2 inches to the barrel. So this has a 20-inch barrel. The Model 600 had an 18-inch barrel, apparently. They made the Model 660 from 1968 to 1971. So they only made it for 3 years. And in those 3 years, they only made 45,000 of them. So it's actually a fairly rare rifle, I think. I've never seen another one. I haven't seen one in any shop, and I've never seen anyone else use one.
They made it in a variety of different calibers, a whole bunch. They did, I don't know, about 7 or 8 different calibers, I think. 222, 223, 243.
222, 223, 243, 6mm Remington, 308, and then they made this in a 350 Remington Magnum. If you find one of those,
Which
I'd love to know about it.
that's probably going to be the most rare one you can find. This is a 308.
I'm sure you're all familiar with the 308 round. You know, it's not that big, but it is more than sufficient for whitetails. It'll pretty much kill most large game.
Absolutely. 308's a fantastic round. And little story behind this gun. So when I started hunting back in my youth, I didn't have my own rifle. My mom and dad each had a rifle, but I didn't have one. And I actually was talking to one of my school teachers, and my 7th grade middle school teacher, and I mentioned to her that I didn't have a rifle, that I was going to be taking my shotgun up north to the rifle zone, and she offered to let me borrow her rifle. And this was her rifle. Now, it was actually her husband, her first husband, who died unexpectedly at a young age from internal organ failure. Hadn't been explained. I don't remember the exact story about it, but her husband had died unexpectedly, and she had this rifle. She did not hunt, and her second husband, her new husband, also did not hunt. He was a big-time fly fisherman, and he actually taught me how to fly fish and bought me an Orvis fly rod for my high school graduation, but different story there. She let me borrow this rifle, and I shot my first buck with it. And then every year I would call her and ask her if I could borrow it, and every year she said, absolutely, of course, no problem. And every year she gave me the same box of 308 shells from about 1968 when the rifle was made. And I, of course, chose to use my own ammunition and not the box of bullets that she had given me. However, I've shot many deer over the years with it. My buddy Craig, who I'm sure will be watching this video, also used it one year and shot a nice buck up here with it. And it's just been absolutely splendid. Well, when Mary Jane became terminally ill and was fighting some cancer, I had borrowed the rifle for deer season. I went to take it back to her, and she told me, she said, "You hang on to that." She said, "I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here. That rifle needs to be with you. You love it. It loves you. You've done great with it. I have no purpose for it. Consider that to be your rifle." So, uh, it means a lot to me, the sentimental value of this coming from my teacher who let me borrow it for many years, and then giving it to me as she was going through her final stages of life was just an immeasurable gift, and I will cherish it forever. I then passed it down to my son to use, and I don't believe I've actually given it to him, but it's pretty much his
But
gun
I use
now.
it more than you do. This gun has seen pretty much every deer season since, what, 1980?
88?
88.
Yeah.
This gun has been to pretty much every deer season since. So what is that, 30, 40, almost 40 years?
Certainly
30
it was
some.
used before I got it, too.
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah, I'm sure Mike used it before I got it, but
I don't know which year this one was made. But
I've borrowed it until it became mine officially since 1988. And it gets used every year, and it kills a deer or two every year. It's been fantastic.
bolt action. Oh, yeah. One more thing about this gun that really kind of sucks, and a reason that they discontinued it. The only way to open your bolt is on fire. If you have the gun on safe, you can't move the bolt. Not sure why they did that, but you have to put it on fire to open your bolt, which is fine if you practice the rules of firearm safety. But if you don't, as some people haven't, and your finger's on the trigger, near the trigger when you're loading or unloading the gun, there have been instances of this gun accidentally going off because you have to have it on fire to use the bolt.
It has a 4-round internal magazine. There's no external release, so in order to unload all 4 rounds that you have in your magazine, you have to manually lock and load every single round in order to extract them.
Yeah, it's not really ideal. I think that's a big reason they discontinued it in 1971. Just not very safe. Things were much different in the world then, but
But it is a beautiful gun, and being that they're rare, we chose to put a slip sling on it instead of drilling a hole into the stock or the forearm to put sling mounts on, and it works fantastic. It's a beautiful sling. It works very well.
is this the same scope that you had?
When I got the gun, it did not have a scope.
Oh,
When I
iron
first,
sights?
yeah, I started using this gun with iron sights only. I bought that loophole base mount and rings somewhere in the late 90s. I hunted about 10 years with it without a scope, and then that scope actually came off of my mother's Remington Model 742 Woodsmaster 30-06 semi-automatic, and I upgraded the scope on that gun, and then I took that scope and put it on here, and I'm not sure that the other scope was actually an upgrade. This is actually an old Kmart scope, 1968 Kmart scope, and it is fantastic.
Still clear.
And this gun is an absolute magnificent shooter. I made hand loads for it, 125 grain, for my boys when they were young, just so I wouldn't have too much pressure, and I was able to draw a smiley face on a paper plate with this at 100 yards. And that's not just my marksmanship. That's the gun itself is just a fantastically accurate, sweet shooter.
I used those 125 grain hand loads to kill this deer. Went straight through both lungs and the heart. Perfect shot. Of course, he was only at 15 yards, but still, perfect shot. So, opening day, 2016, November 15th here in Michigan is opening day. I was sitting in our food plot blind, which is a little 4x5, I think it was. Box blind, built by 2x4s and plywood, and really nice. Anyway, 4 feet off the ground. No, was it? It might not have been at the time.
Might have been on the ground that year.
Anyway, a little 4x5 box blind, custom built. I went out there, and then Dad went about 150 yards ish down the trail to his blind. So I was alone. Dad was alone, and there was a scrape on the ground about 15 yards in front of my deer blind. And at about 7:15 ish, this guy comes to check his scrape. So I have my nice and trusty Remington Model 660 loaded with my 308s, 125 grain hand loads, not these, but so I was, of course, all nervous as could be. So I haven't shot a buck at the time yet, and this buck 15 yards from me, so I'm, you know, all excited as all can be, which I still am every time I see a buck, but buck fever. This guy was about 15 yards straight ahead, broadside, came in to check his scrape, and I saw him. So the scrape, my blind faces west, straight west, and then the scrape was over here next to a little brush of trees, and he was checking that. So that's when I had time to get the gun up and stuff, and then he walked out. It's my first buck, so I was inexperienced. Let him walk probably maybe 5-10 more yards in front of me into this big opening we had. And then I put the gun on him, took a deep breath to steady my nerve, pulled the trigger, boom, double lungs, went straight through the heart. He turned around, ran back where he came from. That's what deer do usually. He ran about 15 yards and dropped, dead right there. 125 grain hand loads out of this gun, Remington Model 660 308. That's fairly quick story, but that's the story of my first buck in 2016. This little 8-point, basically identical to the one that Dad got. The one Dad shot was probably 300 yards north of me. Same deer, just a couple generations later. So it's really cool. This gun means a lot. It was super deep fog. You couldn't see more than 20-25 yards. So when I shot this deer, Dad was in a different blind, probably 150 yards. I couldn't hear him, but I assume he jumped out of his seat because you could only see like 20-25 yards. Then of course, I texted him after that to make sure he knew I was okay. Yeah.
Now, just like a cartoon, I about came out of my underpants. Scared me.
So this gun means a lot to us. It'll probably go to my children someday.
It's a fabulous gun, fabulous shooter. I absolutely love it. I did have to remove the rear sight when I put the scope on. I went with a low mounts on here. It just barely clears the bolt, but it's smooth and slick. Just absolutely wonderful. Great gun. Very well built. Real high quality Remington. I love the stock design. It's just a really great model of a gun. And hopefully one of these days I'll find other Model 660s that I can purchase. I'd really love to find one in the 350 Remington.
That would be cool.
That would be great.
I wonder how many of those. They probably didn't make many in that caliber. They only made 45,000 total of the Model 660. And of that model, they made it in 5 or 6 different calibers. So, I imagine they only made a handful in each caliber. 350 would be cool. Yeah, if you find one of these, go ahead and buy one. It's a fantastic gun. Really nice. Being with a 20-inch barrel, it's real nice for carrying through the woods. The gun doesn't weigh very much. At least it doesn't feel like it does. And it has an internal magazine, so you don't have to mess with carrying an extra magazine or trying to take that one out. Or you do have to carry extra bullets. Well, you don't have to, but I would recommend it.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the length of pull is on it, but it's a fairly compact gun with the 20-inch barrel, the one-piece stock, and it's really easy to maneuver around the woods. It's really a great gun for someone who's just getting started, or really, and what I used it for. My other son and my oldest daughter and Caleb, they've all used this gun. It's a awesome starter gun for a youth, for a teenager. Just really easy to handle, really smooth, good operation, and it's a fantastic shooter. So the accuracy and dependability of it, super reliable. Standard old Remington a quality gun.
So, thanks for watching this video. Hope you liked it.
If you did, hit that like button and make sure you subscribe because there's a new video coming every single day this month.
Yep. We got what's the day 2021 when this comes out? So we got 4 more days until Christmas. So we're doing a video every day until Christmas Day, and on Christmas Day we're having a really special video.
You don't want to miss that one. That one's going to be a blast. Our Christmas special is going to be phenomenal. You're going to love it. So hit that notification bell so you get notified. New video every single day at 3 o'clock Eastern.
3 o'clock. Shoot straight. Put your safeties on. Or off if you have to unload the gun. Like, I don't know why they did that. I've seen other model guns that do that too. I don't know who decided that was okay. But anyway, shoot straight.
Keep the fire going.
It's the predecessor. It's the predecessor to the Model 660. They made this gun the 6. No, this is the 660. Oh, I just broke my wrist.
Why'd you do that?
Oh, I tried to lean on it to stand up, and it rolled over on itself.
Oh,
yeah. I hope this was recording the whole time.
I hope so.
Oh yeah, 19 minutes.